I want you to think of someone you know, someone smart, hardworking, genuinely talented. Maybe they got a big raise, or landed a major contract, or had an exceptional year where real money actually showed up. And yet, 2 years later, they were exactly where they were before. The money was gone. The debt was back. The lifestyle had returned to the same level, like there was an invisible force pulling them back. Now think of someone else. Someone who, no matter what happens, always seems to land well. Loses one client, gains two. Has a bad year, bounces back the next year. That person's floor keeps rising. What's the difference? It isn't discipline. It isn't luck. It isn't even intelligence. It's that those two people have different income ceilings, and those ceilings aren't set by the market. They're not set by the economy. They're set by the brain before either of them was 12 years old. And today I'm going to show you exactly how that works with real science, concrete numbers, and a protocol you can start applying today. Really quick, if this is already making you think differently, please hit that like button right now. It tells me this content is worth making more of, and if you're new here, subscribe. I post the science that they never taught you about your own mind every single week. Now, let's get into it. Before I get into the science, I want to tell you something important. By the end of this video, I'm going to give you 3 exact protocols that you can start using today to move that ceiling. Specific, neuroscience-based tools, not motivation, not affirmations, not theory. But first, you need to understand why everything you've tried so far hasn't worked. Because if you don't understand the mechanisms, the protocols won't make sense, and honestly, you won't use them. So stay with me, it's worth it. Let me tell you something economists discovered decades ago, that the self-improvement industry never connected quite right. Studies on lottery winners in the United States showed that 70% were broke within 5 years of winning. But there's something more specific than that. Researchers who studied workers who received significant raises, not inheritance, not luck, but earned raises deserved for real work, found that 78% of those people returned to debt and spending levels nearly identical to what they had before within 2 years. Not because they're irresponsible, not because they didn't understand basic math, but because the subconscious has what neuroscientists call a financial set point, a baseline, a level of income comfort, an income and economic identity that the brain registers as normal and comfortable. And when the external reality exceeds that baseline, whether it's upwards or downwards, the system does everything that it can to return to the equilibrium that it recognizes, just like a thermostat. You can open the window in winter and the room gets cold, but the thermostat fires up the heat and returns it to a comfortable 68 degrees. Extra money arrives, the subconscious opens windows, and the level returns to the set point. This isn't a motivational metaphor. It's documented neurobiology. Now, how did that set point get established? And this is where the science actually starts to get personal. Bruce Lipton documented that before the age of 7, the brain operates in theta waves. These are the same brainwave states that a person accesses when they're under a deep hypnosis. There's no critical filter. There's no ability to evaluate or reject what comes in. Everything is simply recorded as absolute truth. But there's something that Lipton identified that almost no one talks about. Between the ages of 7 to 12, the brain begins to exit that theta state, and critical thinking starts to develop. But during that transitional period, it's still highly susceptible to repeated patterns. And what gets repeated during that pattern? Conversations you overhear at the dinner table. The comments about who has money and who doesn't. The phrases that your family repeats about work, about effort, about what's possible for people like you. Let me give you a concrete example. Picture a 9-year-old boy. Smart, curious, full of ideas. One day he tells his father, genuinely excited, no agenda, but he says, "Dad, when I grow up, I want to have my own business." And the father, without thinking, tired after a long day, says, "That's for people with money, son. We're workers. That's how we live well and honestly." The father wasn't trying to limit him. He was sharing his own truth, his own story, his own program. But that boy, in that state of high receptivity, didn't hear an opinion. He heard a law of the universe. People like us don't own businesses. People like us work hard. That's our place. And 30, 40 years later, that boy, now a grown man, educated and very capable, reaches a certain point and stops. And he doesn't know why. He just feels like it's enough, that going further is maybe it's dangerous, that it's not for him. That's not humility. That's the programming running. Lipton estimates that 95% of our daily decisions are directed by subconscious programs recorded before the age of 12. Not 50%, not 70%, 95%. You are living, for the most part, a life designed by a child who didn't have the context or the capacity to design it well. And here's where quantum physics enters. And I want to be precise because this isn't spirituality. This is applied physics. Physicist David Bohm, he was a colleague of Einstein, one of the most important quantum physicists of the 20th century. He developed the concept of implicate order, the idea that what we see, manifest reality, objects, events, results, is only the surface of a deeper order that is fundamentally non-local and non-separate. What the heck does that mean? Well, in practical terms, it means that what you perceive as out there is not independent of what's happening in here. The double slit experiment, which has been replicated thousands of times, demonstrated that subatomic particles don't have a fixed position until they're observed. The act of observation condenses that wave function, and consciousness participates in the formation of reality. This has a direct implication for your income ceiling. If your field of consciousness, your subconscious baseline, your set point, your deepest expectations, your programmed financial identity is constantly collapsing the wave function toward a specific level of income, of opportunities, of visible possibilities. It's not that the opportunities don't exist. It's that your perceptual system is literally calibrated not to see them. The HeartMath Institute measured that the electromagnetic field of the heart, which changes depending on your emotional states and your deep beliefs, extends approximately 3 feet outside of your body. You are a transmitter, and what you transmit affects what you receive. Not because the universe is rewarding you or punishing you, but because selective perception, social resonance, and automatic decisions are all calibrated by that internal field. Let me give you an example that every man in this audience has seen. 2 men. Both have 10 years in the same industry, same experience level, same technical skill. Both are offered the same opportunity. Maybe it's an important project or more responsibility, a promotion, more income, whatever. The first man says yes, but over the next 6 months, unconsciously begins to undermine the project. Maybe he's late to key meetings. Maybe he makes errors that he wouldn't normally make. Maybe he becomes difficult with a client and the project fails. He returns to his previous level. And he doesn't understand what happened. Maybe he says that client was impossible, or the timing was bad, or the project was poorly designed from the start. Now let's take the second man. Second man also says yes, and something very different happens in his body. He doesn't feel the same weight. He adapts more easily. He makes mistakes too, but he solves them instead of amplifying them. And the project moves forward. His level rises. The difference wasn't skill. It was that set point. The first man had a ceiling, and when he touched it, his nervous system pulled him back. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio documented this clearly. Emotions direct our decisions. They don't interfere with them, they direct them. No matter how logical we are, our emotions are still having a profound experience in our life. When the subconscious emotional system perceives that you're about to hit or you're about to supersede your set point, it generates exactly the emotions, anxiety, discomfort, imposter feeling, feeling of failure, that produce the decisions that return you to the same familiar point. Now, this might sound like sabotage, but it's not. This is the unconscious mind. This is your thermostat doing its job. So the real question is, how do you move the thermostat? And here I want to be very specific because there is a massive difference between what actually works and what gets sold. It doesn't move with motivation. Motivation is conscious and it's temporary. It doesn't move with affirmations alone. Affirmations are intellectual, and the subconscious doesn't listen to the mouth. It doesn't speak English. It listens to the body. It moves with intervention at the level of the operating system. So there are 3 doors. The first door is identity expansion in theta state. Okay, what this means is your income ceiling isn't a number. It's part of your identity. It's who you believe yourself to be in relation to money, success, and what you deserve. Your identity can be rewritten, but only in the brain state where it was originally written. That first 15 minutes after waking up and the last 15 minutes of the day before you fall asleep, that is when the brain is in the theta waves. This is when you have direct access to the operating system without the firewall of your conscious mind. In that theta state, the practice isn't repeating affirmations. It's embracing a new identity. It's entering the emotional state of the person who already broke through that ceiling, feeling in the body, not just thinking with the mind, but feeling in the body what it feels like to be that version of yourself. Now, your brain cannot reliably distinguish between a vividly imagined experience with full emotional charge and a real one. The same neural circuits activate, the same learning occurs. Now, the second door is called somatic interruption. The set point doesn't only live in the mind, it lives in the body. The patterns of tension, posture, and breathing that activate automatically when you approach that ceiling. You might feel the tension in your shoulders. Your breathing might get a little shallow. You'll start feeling that anxiety when you start approaching that ceiling. Learning to recognize that physical signal, that specific moment of contraction, discomfort, wanting to step back, and instead of following it, interrupting it deliberately with coherent breathing, with intentional movement, and immediate reframing. This is the heart math protocol. It's a 5-second inhale and a 5-second exhale. Attention on the heart and accessing a genuine emotion of gratitude or appreciation. 5 minutes. That's it. This protocol lowers cortisol. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system, and it literally changes the electromagnetic field that you're transmitting. If you use this at the exact moment that that ceiling starts activating, not as a general routine, but as a very specific intervention, a very specific interruption, it's one of the most powerful documented tools for set point change. Now, the third door is new evidence accumulation. The subconscious doesn't change through arguments. It changes through repeated evidence. Every single time that you take an action that is above your previous set point and you survive, the nervous system updates its map of what is safe. Every time you cross a threshold and don't collapse, that ceiling rises a little, not all at once, progressive and deliberate. Donald Hebb established in 1949 that neurons that fire together, every experience of being above that ceiling, accompanied by emotional regulation instead of panic, physically builds new neural connections. You're literally rewiring the thermostat. So now let's circle back to where we started. The person who gets the raise and 2 years later is exactly where they were. The man who reaches a certain point and can't explain why he doesn't keep going. The colleague who seems to always have a rising floor no matter what happens. It isn't luck. It isn't the market. It isn't injustice. They're running different set points, and the set point can change. Not because someone tells you it can, but because the brain has neuroplasticity, the documented, measured, laboratory replicated capacity to rewrite its own patterns with the right stimuli in the right state and the right emotional charge. Your income ceiling is not a concrete ceiling. It is a code ceiling, and the code can be rewritten. And that is exactly what we do here. So if this video opened something in your mind, please subscribe, turn on the bell, leave me questions in the comments because that tells me what is the next video that I need to make. Every single question I read and I'm going to respond to that. Okay, so now you know that your consciousness has a thermostat and that you can move it. I'll talk to you soon.